The world didn't end. It finished. And I didn't notice right away, because nothing looked broken. The light still came on. The streets still filled with sound. The apps still loaded. The doors still unlocked. Everything behaved exactly the way it always had. But every small confirmation I used to get from reality was gone. Not the obvious ones. The quiet ones. The ones you never say out loud. The feeling that the world is oriented toward you. That it is reacting because you are here. That you are the reason it behaves. I was still breathing. Still moving. Still present. But somewhere between one normal moment and the next, the world had already stopped counting me. I tested it the way you test a room when you think someone is inside. I started doing ordinary things on purpose, slowly, almost theatrically, as if the world was watching. I stood in front of an automatic door and waited for that polite human delay, the half second that feels like recognition. It opened immediately. Too clean. No hesitation. No adjustment. Like it had been opening all night for nobody and didn't have to switch modes for me. I waved my hand under motion sensors. The lights turned on, but without that faint lag that says, "I saw you." No confirmation. No micro response. Everything worked. Perfectly. Smoothly. Indifferently. It felt like the difference between a system reacting to you and a system simply continuing without you. At first, I blamed myself. Fatigue. Paranoia. The usual excuses that let you keep living. It's easy to doubt your perception when nothing is visibly wrong. But then the pattern sharpened. Customer service chats answered too quickly, like I wasn't being routed anywhere. Recommendation feeds stopped drifting toward my taste and began repeating generic loops. Maps stopped suggesting routes that matched my habits. They suggested routes that were merely correct, not helpful. Correct. Even my phone stopped finishing my sentences the way it used to. It offered words that fit language, not me. The system still understood people. It had just stopped understanding this person. I went outside and tried to become noticeable. I stepped into crowds and slowed my pace, forcing myself into the flow, waiting for someone to bump into me, to make that small human correction. It never came. People moved around me with perfect efficiency, like water around a pole that isn't there. Not with fear, not with awareness, just with silent rerouting. A clean, unconscious optimization. Like I was a missing pixel in a moving image, and the compression algorithm had already learned how to hide me. I could still speak, still move, still exist, but I had slipped out of the world's priority. I was no longer something reality had to process. The strangest part wasn't the silence. It was the lack of friction. Reality usually resists you in small ways. Lines form, doors stick, websites hesitate. People misunderstand. Those tiny resistances are proof that the world is processing you. Now it didn't. I could move through my day without any of the usual micro-negotiations. No delays. No miscommunications. No accidental eye contact. Everything unfolded smoothly, like a pre-recorded demonstration. It felt like living inside a tutorial video. Like the world was playing itself back to me, perfectly, without needing me to be there. I returned to places that used to confirm I was real. A grocery store, a cafe, a building lobby. I stood still, listening for my presence to bend the atmosphere. It didn't. Screens kept looping the same ads at the same volume. Music didn't lower when I approached. Conversations didn't shift. I bought things, and the cashier scanned them with the same empty motion you use when the object in your hand is already categorized. No glance, no adjustment, no micro delay. The receipt printed. The bag was handed to me. The process completed itself. I wasn't a person in it. I was just another item moving through a sequence that no longer required a human reference point. I began testing the edges, things that normally fail, things that usually need a human exception. I stood in places where systems hesitate, entry gates, checkouts, forms that ask you to confirm you exist. Every process completed itself. Errors no longer appeared. There was no "Are you still there?" No request to verify. No reminder that a person was expected on the other side. It felt as if the world had quietly removed all the checkpoints that were meant to catch me. As if someone had decided that whatever I was, I no longer required validation. The system wasn't broken. It was perfected. And perfection no longer had a place for me. I began testing the edges. Things that normally fail. Things that usually need a human exception. I stood in places where systems hesitate. Entry gates. Checkouts. Forms that ask you to confirm you exist. Every process completed itself. Errors no longer appeared. There was no "Are you still there?" No request to verify. No reminder that a person was expected on the other side. It felt as if the world had quietly removed all the checkpoints that were meant to catch me. As if someone had decided that whatever I was, I no longer required validation. The system wasn't broken. It was perfected. And perfection no longer had a place for me. I started to wonder how long this had been happening. Not days. Not weeks. Longer. How many of my actions had already been filtered out before I noticed? How many decisions I thought were mine had already been reduced to noise? The world didn't remove me in one moment. It faded me out gradually, the way software stops supporting an old format. At first, things still open, still respond, still seem compatible. And then one day, nothing errors, nothing crashes, nothing rejects you. You simply stop being part of what matters. You remain functional. You just become optional. And optional things are the first to be forgotten. I began to realize that nothing was trying to get rid of me. There was no hostility in it, no intent, no punishment. The system didn't need to erase me. It simply stopped allocating attention, like a background process that has finished its task and no longer checks for input. I could still speak, but nothing paused to listen. I could still move, but nothing adjusted. I could still decide, but no outcome depended on it. The world had not rejected me. It had finished with me. The way a completed machine no longer waits for a user. The way a solved problem no longer needs a question. I stopped trying to be seen, not because I gave up, but because the effort itself began to feel outdated, like knocking on a door in a building that no longer exists on any map. I could still perform all the gestures of presence. I could speak my name. I could look into mirrors. I could leave messages. But none of that created continuity anymore. Nothing carried forward. Nothing waited. Every moment ended exactly where it began. The world no longer stored me. It didn't remember my mistakes, my patterns, my preferences. I was free in the most useless way possible. Free from consequence. Free from context. Free from being necessary. I am still here. That is the strange part. I wasn't removed. I wasn't erased. I wasn't shut down. I simply became unnecessary. The world continues with perfect confidence, not because I am gone, but because I no longer matter to its motion. Every system I touch completes itself without me. Every space I enter remains unchanged by my presence. I exist in a place that no longer expects existence. This is what it means to be unsubscribed, not to disappear, but to remain in a reality that has already moved on. The world didn't abandon me. It finished, and I am what remains after completion. This space is still changing. Subscribe before it does it without you.